So, hello
And
everyone.
hi,
Welcome,
go on nun.
welcome.
Thank you, Nuno.
This time in English, just because we have Bob here. Welcome, Bob. Obviously,
you.
we have more English-speaking people participating here, and obviously everyone is welcome. So, this is a Portuguese-speaking agile community. So, we are more or less based between Portugal and Brazil, but our community is spread everywhere on the native Portuguese speaking. Okay, so very special moment today. I confess I'm a bit nervous here because I finally have the opportunity to chat a bit with Robert Martin, so Uncle Bob, aka Uncle Bob. And obviously, it's a pleasure for us here having you here, Bob, and I hope you enjoy also being with us.
I'm sure I will.
So obviously, we'll try to talk a bit about the Agile Manifesto. Obvious, that's what people here want to hear a bit of that. And because there was a special request on inside the community, especially the development side, so our developers inside our community. So we're gonna have hopefully a bit of more technical conversation, discussion. I'm sure you'll enjoy that also.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to launch the first question. Okay, and for those who want to interact with Bob, so we'll try to keep this a bit organized. So first, we will ask you to raise hand before popping the question if you want to do it live, or you can write it on the chat window, and then we will announce you or one of our moderators will ask the question directly to Bob. Okay, so making sure we try to cover everyone's a bit of time for the question we want to see around our what I suppose will be an enjoyable conversation. Okay, so my first question to you, Bob. 20 years later, okay, and I remember seeing something like working software over comprehensive documentation. So my first question, it's an obvious one, which is what type of working software 20 years later are we talking about? So what you guys considered back in 2001 that would be a working software 20 years later, if you understand a bit of what I'm trying to reach.
The idea that we had during the manifesto years was that it is better to present a piece of working software to your customers than it is to present a nice little diagram of what the software might look like one day. So that's really kind of where we were. We thought, if you're going to build software, and if it's going to take you a year to put a software product together, it is better every month to show something working to the customer, hopefully 1/12 of everything once a month, so that by the time you get done with a year, you've got it all done. It's better to do that than it is to show them a fancy little diagram of how you analyze the requirements and spend 3 months doing that, and then another 3 months with a bunch of other fancy diagrams about how you're going to design it. It's better to just show them working software. And so that's why we said that. We prefer working software over documentation. Not that we don't want documentation, we do. But along with that documentation, it's even better if there's something working along with that, even if it's not the whole product, something working. That's really where we were going with that.
So I'm
Great,
gonna go
great.
to. I want to go to the next question because I have one question that I asked to everyone that I meet who was on that room. So the way that the Agile Manifesto is presented on the website, we have the values on the middle, but for me and for some people that I talk with who was in that room, the part on the top is the most important one. That says that we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it. So we, the workers, are uncovering better ways of doing our job and helping others to do the same. So to put techniques to uncover better ways of doing that. Okay. Sadly today, and I use sadly, we have many people who believe that they have the answer. And they are doing that on the name of Agile. How
It's
do you
all
feel?
uncovered now. We're not uncovering anything anymore. It's all uncovered, and we know.
We have all the solutions.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, how do you feel about that? And why the authors are not trying to re-promote the true agility out there?
Well, one author is at least. Yeah, I've been pretty active at trying to keep that that message alive. Just got done with a book called Clean Agile, which attempts to try and bring things back to the way they were 20 years ago. The what's really going on is what happens to everything in software and everything in every industry is that once something gets popular, a whole bunch of other people need to kind of jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And then they have to differentiate themselves. So they have to say, well, I'm better than that guy and I'm better than him over here. And they do that by adding adjectives and adding modifiers and describing themselves in some different way. And in the end, it muddles the message. Right? So now we've got safe and we've got less and we've got modern and we've got skilled and all these adjectives go in front of the word agile because these guys have got to sell. And that's just what happens to everything. And then, after a few decades, people look around and they say, gee, what happened to the original message? And then you go back to basics and study the original message and we'll go through the whole thing again. It's just a normal cycle for how these kinds of things work.
So when the confinement started, I rebought all the books that I read in the 90s, all of them, DSDM and all of them. The one from pragmatic developers. So and what I see what we do today is so far from it. And it gets me so upset all the time. So I know that you are trying to do that. And I know that Andy is doing the same with growth and stuff like that, trying to do something out there. But what about the others?
Well, I talk to the others from time to time, not very often, right? I talk to John Kern from time to time. I talk to Alistair from time to time. I've had a few words with Kent Beck. But these are people who are consultants, highly opinionated. When we met 20 years ago, most of us didn't know each other real well. And we just kind of gathered in that room and we knew of each other. And we had a great meeting. It was one of those rare meetings when actually something happens as opposed to, the meeting where nothing happens and everybody goes home. But there was no need for us to get together again. And it's not like we're really good friends. We don't send emails to each other all the time. We've managed to get together a couple of times since, although never to do anything. Like one time we managed to all get together. I think it was at the 10-year anniversary. They brought us all together at an Agile conference, and we all sat on stage and we said a few interesting words and then went away. For many of us, it was the first time we'd laid eyes on each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no meeting of the group. There is no consensus amongst the group. We do not plan to do anything again. The thing happened once. The moment was put forward. It's on the website, and that's pretty much the end of it. As far as the authors are concerned, the authors don't feel any responsibility to push the message onward.
So more or less, you feel like the Fellowship of the Ring is it's
Frodo has thrown the ring into Mount Doom.
Exactly.
The Dark Lord is done. There's no more waterfall, and now we have to actually live in a world without the Dark Lord.
Yeah, but we have the new
but that's Middle Earth, not ours, right?
We have the new one that is called business agility, right?
Some of us have not yet gone to the Grey Havens, but
Yeah.
But Bob, what were your expectations at the time when you did these expectations did they got met anyhow, or do you feel frustrated? What is your feeling now?
Oh no, I'm not frustrated at all. My expectations at the time, I believe everybody's expectations at the time, was that it would amount to nothing at all. Because I've been to meetings like this before where we think, oh man, we've got to do something. We're going to send a message, and then nothing happens, and everybody goes home, and it's a wash. This one was different. For some reason, this one caught, and that's a 1 in a million case. I'm very happy that I was at a meeting where the message actually caught fire and moved through the industry. So there's nothing for me to be frustrated about there. I mean, that was a very successful meeting and a very successful message. Now, since then, the message has gotten confused and muddled. And okay, so some of us will yell about that, and others who weren't there will yell about it too. And that's fine. That's fine. People should have their voice and move the message forward the best way they can.
I find the structure that you came up with, this thing over the other thing, this is really interesting. So I think this is something new, I think. Do you remember who came up with that idea?
I do not. It was the solidifying concept. You have to remember these guys, 17 guys, came from a whole bunch of different backgrounds. You had Kent Beck and Ron Jeffries from the extreme programming space. You had Alistair Coburn, who was kind of an everything is everybody kind of guy. And you had Pete Code's guy, John Kern was there. We had Ari from DSDM. The pragmatic programmers were there. They didn't want any process. They didn't like process. Martin Fowler was there. He thought process was a good idea, but he didn't like any of the ones on the table. And then you had Steve Meller, who was the spy. He was the enemy. He was the waterfall guy, the big scientific management guy. So it was a very diverse, ideologically diverse group of people. And that anything at all could have come out of that was kind of a miracle. And it happened on the second day. Actually, I think it happened at the end of the first day, but other people tell me it was on the second day when somebody put on the board this idea of something is better than something else. Not that the something else was bad. This is something else was good. It's just that these ideas are maybe a little bit better. And that comparison, we like working code over documentation. We like collaboration over contracts. That flow, that poem suddenly snapped everything into place. And the whole group, all 17 of us, kind of looked at the board and went, yeah, that's why we're here. And the meeting was essentially over at that point. Now who put that on the board? I think it was Ward Cunningham, but he denies it. Other people think it was Martin Fowler, but Martin Fowler does not fess up to it. He doesn't say it was him. So it's a mystery. no one remembers clearly who put that on the board in the first place. And maybe it's better that way.
It's a nice example of emergence then, isn't it?
Oh boy, yes. Because the first day, you know, was the typical kind of thing where we were writing concepts down on cards and shuffling the cards on the floor and writing things on the board, and you know, just the normal kind of brainstorming stuff you have in those meetings. And then out of all of that, somebody had this one bit of clarification that they put on the board. And then the whole meeting just centered around that. And it was this really a miraculous moment. It was a magical moment because everybody just stared at the board and went, yeah, that's why we're here. And then we just had a couple more meetings to kind of choose the name. Nobody liked any of the names. You know, Agile was not a favorite name. It got voted in, but by just a bare minimum.
What other name was on the board?
Well, my favorite was lightweight.
Okay, so
nobody
yes,
likes that one.
Yeah,
okay. But I liked lightweight. And Jim Highsmith put forward adaptive. And that one actually got quite a few votes, but not quite as many as Agile. It was John Kern who mentioned Agile because the military was interested in Agile fighters at the time. Yeah. And so that word kind of clicked, but the voting was kind of all across the board. And I think Agile won by 1 vote or 2 votes.
Yeah, I understand. So it's more or less the same issue when people was talking about RAD. There is radical development or rapid application development. Right. Radical development don't sell well. So let's use rapid because it's better marketing, right?
So there's an argument there that the word RAD was really important to get noticed and then was a detriment later. The same thing with extreme programming, right? The word extreme got the idea noticed. And then it was very fortunate that the word agile kind of pushed extreme out of the way and kept those ideas alive.
Yeah. And something that is interesting. So I started studying DSEM in 98, 99 because I was curious. I studied Rational Unified Process because I wanted. So I was very into the RAD. And when I look at the Agile Manifesto the first time, I'm going to be very transparent. I didn't like it. Not the values, but I didn't like the first principle. You know, that's the first principle for me. It's what my boss wants me to do. And that should be the consequences of all the other ones. Okay, so if they allow us to improve, in the end, we're going to be building better products. So, but anyway, and I was expecting extreme programming to lead everything because extreme programming was touching the real problem. The real problem is the way that we are managed. They don't allow us to do quality. And extreme programming was fighting against that in a very strong way. And I was impressed of what's happened.
So what has happened? The extreme programming was the idea that really drove the Agile meeting. Had it not been for extreme programming, there would have been no Agile meeting. Scrum was there already, but you know, Scrum had been around since 1995, and people looked at it and they went, okay, but
86, the official paper. Well, okay. It was adopted in 95. So let's be very transparent.
Very good. I remember the 95 paper that was delivered by Schwaber and DeVoe and Beadle at the Patterns Conference. But the idea kind of just muddled. It didn't go anywhere. Yeah. And then you had Kent Beck, and he started doing this extreme programming stuff. And it just so happened to coincide with the .com bubble. And all of a sudden, that was just everything. It was in all the trade journals. It was everywhere. And there was all kinds of positive and negative stuff going back and forth. And in the midst of all that, this Agile thing started to come around. And the Agile thing came around because all these other folks, the Scrum folks and the DSTM folks and the FTD folks, recognized that there was this core of identical ideas. And isn't there some way that we could just name this core of identical ideas and use that as the coalescing principle?
And another thing but that's just an assumption. I think what ThoughtWorks did on getting back adaptive software development to life and starting to try out the techniques of software engineering, maybe it's helped to sponsorize a lot the movement, right? There was a successful IT organization with happy employees, happy customers, and people are saying, how can you do that? So I don't know, maybe it was one of the reasons.
Oh, ThoughtWorks was critical in the early days. Those guys were on the ground. They adopted those principles right away. They were extreme programming people, right? And they adopted those ideas and disciplines right away and demonstrated that they could make very happy customers with these ideas, and happy programmers to boot, right? So it was a very important part of the movement of Agile. It was also somewhat short-lived because the crash came right in 2001, right? The dot-com bubble burst. ThoughtWorks, shrink a lot and ran off to the UK to get things done there. And the whole extreme Agile thing shrank a great deal. But then it started to come back. And what brought it back was Ken Schwaber and his idea of certified Scrum Masters.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah. And I
Yes, we lament it to some extent, but it also did kind of save the movement.
It saved the movement, and that's why I decided to join in 2009, because I believe that we needed to save it. And in the beginning I didn't want. In the beginning I was like, Scrum is the enemy. We need to fight against Scrum, So I was in those kind of very purist behavior. But I understood, and I think I was talking with Bob Sarney back on the day, and he told me that the only way to help the organization to change is to be inside. So if you keep that kind of behavior, you're never going to be inside. And I say, oh yeah, it makes sense. So
you have to know the enemy, like kind of that. But let me make an observation here. Talking of the certification industry and Scrum Alliance. So where did it really have so much success? If you look at the training courses and the certifications, you have the big thing, the majority is certifying Scrum Masters, certifying product owners, but certifying the developers, it's not really on the market yet, at least. And that's strange, because as I understand, Bob, what you've been telling us is that the engineering principles, they were really key for the success. So if it's like the XP contribution, which is really engineering stuff, it's doing and how doing things and the tough problems. And funny that currently these certifications that they are most known, most popular, it's kind of the management side. It's not the workers side. What do you think about that?
So when Agile began, when extreme programming kind of turned into Agile, it was being driven by programmers. The people at that meeting, we're all programmers, we're all coders, we're all techies. And for the first couple of years, that was great. The ThoughtWorks people took it and they did great work with it. And we were teaching it and we were promoting it. Then the collapse came, 2001, the dot-com bubble burst. And for the first time in history, and the only time in history, the software industry actually went through a recession. And in the midst of that, Ken Schwaber comes out and says, I've got this idea. And we're going to start teaching certified Scrum Master courses. Now, the brilliance of Ken Schwaber was in the choice of the word Scrum Master.
Yes, fantastic.
And the certification,
right? Yeah.
But he attracted a completely different audience. It wasn't programmers who wanted to become Scrum Masters. Programmers are engineers. They know BS when they hear it. What he got was a bunch of project managers, a lot of project managers.
Yeah.
The project managers needed to have this on their resume. A new certification, and it's got the word master in it. And it was brilliant. I mean, the project managers came in hordes. Now, the good part about that is that the project managers could carry the message into the business, which they did, right? And that was tremendous. The downside of that is that the project managers had no clue about these engineering principles and could just kind of downplay them because the other principles made perfect sense. You know, the backlog management and the pruning of the backlog and the chicken and the pigs thing and all that stuff made perfect sense to the business. But, you know, pair programming, test-driven development, what the devil is that? No, we're not talking about any of that stuff.
Clean code? What does it mean? Refactoring? Why? I'm going to pay you to do twice the work?
Do it right the first time. Yeah. So the business kind of liked the message from the project managers, but all the techies, all the programmers felt disenfranchised. What had happened? What happened to this agile thing that was all about good engineering? Now it's all about management crap. It's not what we got into it for. So now all the programmers are like, this is not for us anymore. But the project managers just took it by storm. They completely took over the conferences. They completely took over the message and have to this day.
That's true. But, you know, I think there is a real need for training the actual developers. You know why? Because I train teams and I start up Scrum teams and stuff. And we focus on the Scrum Master, the product owner, but they will always be at the beginning, and it's always the big problems, splitting, the testing problem that it's done late and then nothing gets really tested. So it's the same problem, but in a microcosm.
Yeah.
And this is something that we want to address. So, and this is about communication stuff, how to collaborate, get the nerds to be a little bit more chatty and all that, the stuff that you need. So I see much to do on that part now. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely agree. Absolutely. Right.
I'm going to explain why Axel is pushing that, because he's on the team on Scrum Alliance staff that's here reshaping the certified Scrum developer to give another trial to it. And he had a lot of hope to make it work. So he's spending a lot of time to see if now they do that in the right way. They get developer interested on learning those techniques. So we tried in the past and we failed, and we're trying again. Let's see what's happened.
Yeah, but you know, I studied the structural problems of that specific certification thing. You know, you had to be a Scrum Master first in order to have the CSD training stuff so that you can get your certification. I mean, that's a problem. So we talk about 5 days and 2 days of Scrum theory stuff. And you know, these programming techniques, this is not easy. This is not easy stuff for someone who is not used to that. That's a challenge, I have to say. So I'm optimistic.
The engineering techniques of Agile, extreme programming, right? Test-driven development, refactoring, pair programming, mob programming, quick, small releases, those kinds of things, simple design. Those are very long-term skills. They take a long time to get good at. You cannot sit in a two-day course on test-driven development and walk away from that and think, oh, I know everything about test-driven development. It'd probably take a good 3-4 years to get really skilled at test-driven development and refactoring and simple design, at least that long, probably longer. And so the idea that you can certify someone is a little bit weak. If you really wanted to have a developer certification, it would have to be of the kind that was a degree program almost. It would have to be a year long or a year and a half long study with very experienced people who would come in and bless them and say, yes, these people really do know, the way doctors do it, the way lawyers do it, so that you can keep some kind of control over the quality of people that you say are certified.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening in the near future.
So
yeah, but that's the idea, to have a path. You have these trainings. It's just about to open your eyes, like to get aware of what it really means, and then you have an advanced, and then that's a pathway. So,
but I have a question for you, Bob. Why you don't get people together to create those kind of very long-term program?
Oh, why don't I do this?
Yeah, the market need it. The market need it. We need people like you who wants, to help people to understand, because the issue that we have, and in my opinion, that's one of the worst issue on the IT market. First of all, so we are a kind of market that we don't mind to have outsiders to tell us what and how to do it. We just shut up and do. So that's really bad. Okay. So that's one of the first issue. The second issue is when you are a successful developer, people promote you. So you're going to be a very bad manager. So we have those two issues. And people, I think some big organizations are understanding the value of people doing the whole career as a developer and staying there, because and today in the actual world, we do nothing without developers, nothing. Even user groups, we need technology. So but many organizations, they believe that you are like a 5 or 10 years experimented developer, you fail your career because you need to be a manager, right? Many organizations believe on that. So having people who had a very successful career as a developer like you, creating a program like that, gonna add lots of value. People are gonna look and say, oh. And I believe that in the old days, that's why Valtech was successful on the training. Now they are not there anymore, but in France it was extremely strong because it was getting people with a lot of experience teaching people in a long term. And we don't have anymore those kind of things for developers out there, at least not as far as I know.
Oh, Sandro, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, but Sandro is Sandro. He's special. We started all those crazy stuff together a long time ago. So and you don't know, but he learned to develop in Java with me. So I am his mentor. Now I'm very useless on Java. But I remember when he arrived with Delphi techniques and and he was impressed, and now he's something different, but we don't have enough Sandro today, and that's the issue.
That's the issue. Am I on mute? No. Am I?
No, you're there.
We can listen to it.
I think that Agile has a PR problem because we were discussing that a while back. Like we were discussing, is it the Agile that moved away from the? Is it developers that moved away from Agile, or is it Agile that moved away from developers? And I think that I wonder if reconciling that today will not be easy, right? And this is why the craftsmanship movement came along, because of the frustration that some of us had in the early 2000s, like probably around 2004 or 5, where it became very clear where things were going, where Scrum was becoming far more popular, XP was being left behind, And then there was the whole reaction in 2008 in Chicago, and then us in London a little bit later with the Craftsmanship. So I'm okay where things are today. With the role that Agile plays and the role that Craftsmanship plays. I don't see them as against each other anymore. I think that they are, but like, I think that it will be a very tough call to try to attract developers for a certification training on software engineering under an Agile or a Scrum banner. That's, I think it will be a tough call.
Mm-hmm. And why?
Well, I think because, like, as I said, I think that developers don't go to Agile conference anymore, right? So they don't see as a developers movement, right? So even XP has very little association to Agile today. For example, I believe that software craftsmanship did far more for extreme programming than Agile itself did. In fact, I think that Agile didn't do much for extreme programming. I think on the contrary. So this is why, let's put it this way: if Agile had been adopted in full on the process and the technical side, as it was originally intended, there would be no need for software craftsmanship in 2008.
That's right.
No need. And that was a friction back then. Nowadays, I don't think that there is a friction anymore. Lean came along as well. DevOps came along. There were a series of movements, and everyone found its place, and they play nicely together. But I think that it's kind of like, I love Agile as an idea, as an ideology, and within that ideology, the different methodologies. But for me, like, it's a bit settled in, like, yeah, this is more on the process side, which is great and is needed. But that's what I'm saying. Like, even if people like myself or Bob or someone else would like to do that, we did that through a different area where the developers are, and they feel that where they belong. So you have a PR problem first to fix.
So at the Snowbird meeting, Kent Beck was there, and he said, I've done this because I want to heal the divide between programming and business.
Yeah.
And clearly what's happened is that divide has happened again. Didn't work. So we have not healed the divide between programming and business. And I had dinner with Kent about 2 years ago, just by accident. We showed up at the same place. And somebody asked Kent, well, what do you think of Agile now? And he said, meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah, that's something that I still have hope. I still have hope. I believe that we still didn't lost the Agile world. I think we can still get it back to where it should be.
I think the Agile message can still be renewed every decade or two. I don't think there's a problem with that. And it would be nice if the engineering practices got a little more identified with Agile. But Sandra is right. There is a separate movement to get those engineering practices on the development side. It's just that it's not aligned with Agile anymore, and that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's against, but like the focus is different, right? I think that like most of the projects that we see today that are more successful, they embrace the Agile processes, or the methodologies more focused on the process side, and they combine that with the more technical practices. And we are not only talking about extreme programming, but we are talking about any other good technical practice out there.
But that's the issue, because if you read the first value of Agile Manifesto, is people interaction over process and tools. And if Agile today focus on the process side, it's not Agile anymore.
This is why craftsmanship exists, right? This is exactly what I was trying to say. That's why the division happened again. And this is what Bob was saying. That's what Kent Beck said 2 years ago. Meet the new boss. What was that? Meet the new boss.
The new boss, like the old boss. Yes.
Yeah.
So I see that Orlando Costa raised his hand.
Yeah.
And we are having like a bar discussion here, and we can invite others to join.
Yeah, I would like to
Who's
make
got the beer?
a question to Robert. It's a pleasure to see him. A couple of weeks ago, I saw, shame on me, this Agile is Dead conference of Dave Thomas, and it's kind of related with the topic here. At some point, it says something that more on the technical side, when he was talking about Ruby and the test that it was because people were demanding like 100% unit tests or something like that, and he said something that for him the tests were driving the design aspects, the APIs and the decoupling, etc. And so, but that now at the stage of his skills is he doesn't need to do anymore. He can write code and he's already the code is already reflecting that. And then he went on to other subjects. He didn't develop too much on that. I would like to hear what your opinion on that.
And that was Dave Thomas.
Yes, at minute, I can tell you the minute.
Dave Thomas.
Yes, at minute 20 of this on YouTube of this Agile is Dead go-to conference.
I see talks that say X is dead, and I know that there's nothing to see. When I say
no, this one is
catchy.
It's a catchy one, but the Agile is Dead is because of the word. It's meaningless now, and it's kind of what you're discussing here. Also, it's a good talk.
I'm sure it is. It's just I heard design is dead. I heard TDD is dead. I heard Agile is dead.
Oh no, it's just dead. It's a provocative title. It's not. It's not.
What do I say about what he said? What do I think about what he said?
See.
The reason I like test-driven development, the reason I write those tests is to make sure that I am writing what I'm writing. It's a way for me to say it twice. I get to say it in the test. I get to say it in the code. If those two match, then I know that I have said something that is consistent. I haven't made a piece of code that does something I didn't think it did. Right. So I use this as a way to make sure that I am writing the code that I think I'm writing. There is some idea that there's design involved. I think there is. If you write the tests first, you must design the code to be testable. So that certainly helps you create decouplings. Is it possible to decouple without writing tests? Of course it is. Maybe that's what Dave was talking about. Is it possible to create good design without writing tests? I'm sure it is. Maybe that's what Dave was talking about. But I will still continue to write my tests so that I know I am writing the code I believe I am writing. I don't think it is wise to write code without something checking that code. And it's very similar to accountants who enter transactions in two separate sets of books simultaneously, one on the asset side, one on the liability side. They maintain those books in parallel to make sure that they are entering transactions that actually say what those transactions do. Because it's way too easy to drop one half of that and then go off into Wonderland with your code or your accounting. And that's not good for anybody. So whether or not Agile is dead or whether or not Dave doesn't like to write tests anymore, I'm going to continue to write tests as much as I can.
I always hated writing tests. I write them because I know that my code is always wrong. So I need to have something checking it.
Well,
So, yeah.
Sure, thanks. Just to clarify, the title of the talk is dead, but what he meant is that Agile, the current Agile, the meaningless Agile, it's dead, but he wants to revive the ideas of the manifesto, because he was saying that people forgot that it was Agile Manifesto for software development, and now they sell courses saying Agile this, Agile that. So actually, it's completely aligned with what
HR Agile, marketing Agile, and blah blah blah.
So,
so let's learn how to do code well first, and after that. So I believe that the Agile community, the new one, we are so arrogant because we don't know how to do our job properly, and we want to teach others to do their job. So first, let's learn how to do ours, And after that, we may start teaching other people if we succeed, right? If we succeed. Anyway.
Luciano, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Go for it.
Congrats for all. Thanks, Bob. Nice to meet you. Bob, do you really believe in that frameworks process that arise or come with the Agile Manifesto? In your heart, do you really believe in that process?
Which process is that?
Oh, the process that bring Agile, like Agile badge in your philosophy, for example, like Scrum, Kanban, and others.
Do I believe in the ideas of the Agile Manifesto? Of course I do. Do I believe in the process of Scrum or extreme programming? I think they're very useful. I think they're very, very valid. Maybe not perfect, but I think they're very valid. Am I answering your question? Is that the question you asked me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. So yes, I believe in all that stuff. I think it's the way that software developers started back in the 1950s. And I think the whole software industry got off track in the 70s. And it took us 30 years to come back and realize that, oh, yeah, those guys in the 50s actually knew what they were talking about back then. We should probably do it that way from now on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the 17th, it's because of the success of waterfall in some little projects on the 16th. People believe that we are applying that everywhere, it will be fixing all the problems. So that's the biggest issue. And so the people who were successful in the 16th became managers on the 17th. So they was making all the decisions for the people who, and that's one of the, when we look back on the history, it's a huge mess. Yeah.
It's important to remember that the guys who were programmers in the 50s started programming when they were old.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't go to school to learn it. Right. They had to learn it on the job, and they were already in their high 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so they didn't have a long time to go. They only had about 10 years to go before they started retiring or moving on. So they couldn't teach as well as other people might have. There were no universities. You couldn't learn to be a programmer back then. You had to learn it on the job. Meanwhile, the demand for programmers was growing like crazy. And so more and more and more programmers just come pouring into the industry with nobody to teach them. And all the people who might have been able to teach them retire early. And so you got guys like me coming in the late 1960s, early 1970s, don't know a thing, think we know everything. And for 30 years, we wrecked the industry.
Okay, a lot of questions and raising hands. So let's give a bit audience here. So Brianna from Houston.
Yes, hello.
Bob, yeah.
Yep,
One of the other guys from the panel, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Perfect. All right. So I've got a lot of background noise. So yes, this is Brianna. My question is, how do we succeed as Agile practitioners in organizations when we were already mired in technical bankruptcy? You've kind of already addressed this a little bit, but I don't care if you come from a technical background or non-technical background, but we're all dealing with technical bankruptcy now, or some more than others. How do we survive?
This is the first time I've heard the term technical bankruptcy. I've heard technical debt before. So it must be very extreme technical debt. So how do you deal with it? And that, of course, is the problem everybody has. Everybody's got a mess. And they think Agile is going to clean up the mess. And Agile doesn't clean up the mess. Agile is a nice framework for getting things done. You can use Agile to help you clean up the mess as long as you prioritize the cleanup of the mess as part of the job that you're going to be doing from sprint to sprint and iteration to iteration. But there's no magic bullet there. There's no, magic wand that we're going to wave over that code and suddenly make it good. It's going to take a lot of very hard work and a lot of time and a lot of effort, and everyone will have to go slow because the code makes you go slow now, and it'll be very difficult to clean. Is it cleanable? Sure. Anything is cleanable. You can probably work it out. You just have to realize that that's what you're going to be doing for the next several years, not weeks, years. Don't start a project. Don't get a bunch of programmers together and say, okay, guys, for the next 2 months, we're going to clean this code, because that's not going to work. You'll just blow it all to hell if you do that. You just have to face the fact that it's a mess, and there has to be an attitude change. Everybody sits there and says, okay, nothing we do from now on will make this mess worse. And every time we touch the code, no matter what reason, we will make it a little bit better, just a little bit. It's risky to do too much, a little bit better. And every sprint, it gets a little bit better and a little bit better. And 2 or 3 years from now, things will be better. Sorry, there's no magic bullet. I wish there were.
It's a very optimistic view I actually believe in, but at the same time, living in this excruciating terms right now. It's just like, I'm at a situation where I'm at a Fortune 50 company, and I'm my 3rd CEO and 4th CTO in years, and it's and meet the new boss, same as the old boss, isn't even good enough, and we can solve the problems if you let me solve the problem. I know how to do it, but you're going to have to let me do it, and I'm not being allowed to. So we're going to stay in technical bankruptcy then, and I don't know how we declare that on the books, unless we go actually financially become financially bankrupt. Then.
Okay, thank you, Brianna. So Thiago, you have a question also for Uncle Bob.
Hi, Uncle Bob. My question is so simple: what is for you the best advice to the new Agile generation?
The best advice to the new Agile generation. Read a lot. Read old things. Go get books that are 40 years old. Read the books that are 40 years old. Go read the books by Tom DeMarco and Tim Lister and Myler Page Jones. Go read the books that founded the industry. Go get Knuth, The Art of Computer Programming. Read Donald Knuth's books on that stuff. Read the old stuff. Learn what this industry came from and how it grew. Then teach. The best way to learn is to teach. So take what you learn and grab somebody else and teach them. Become a communicator. Programmers have a problem that they know how to communicate with the machine. They don't know how to communicate with other people. Learn how to communicate with other people. Develop those skills as well. And that will help you a great deal as you progress in your career.
Thanks, Robert.
You're very welcome.
Hey, in fact, I would like to get to add a little bit more things in what Brianna was asking on the technical bankruptcy. I love the term, by the way, same as Bob. I'll start using if you don't mind. So this is a great example of lack of craftsmanship, but it's not. We all know that, right? But craftsmanship for us, like we've been working craftsmanship for a long time now, like or just promoting those technical values and practices and stuff. But it's very difficult for you to sell something for someone that doesn't suffer the pain. So for example, if you want to talk about quality software, because you have an engineering problem, the engineering problem is not recognized as a business problem. This is one of the first dysfunctions, is understand that a technical problem is a business problem. This is the first kind of conversation you need to have at the top. and then map that technical bankruptcy with the inability for the business to evolve. So while you don't make that connection between the technical problem with a business problem, the technical problem will never be recognized as a problem. That is the first step. And then you come in as an engineering program. Look for the term software modernization. So this is where one area that we are using that is evolving a lot, not only by us, but a few other companies. And normally they are highly technical companies, extremely immersed in extreme programming, in a technical agile technical disciplines. Because you don't want to go in those 5-year terms, because fixing an organization at the size that you were talking about might take forever, but you can do that in an agile way. But running a modernization project in an agile way, while you can fix only technical problems, you are not building features. We are purely working on engineering problems and mapping each one of those refactorings, re-architecturings, redeployments, re-platforming to business problems is extremely complicated. But there is a way to use agile techniques, do it iteratively, purely on technical improvements, and map them all to business improvements. It's difficult, but look for software modernization. And this is, for me, is a great combination of agile processes with highly technical disciplines like all the extreme programming and domain-driven design and architectures and so on. Doing that in an agile fashion is becoming is quite an art, but it is an area that I believe that we all should evolve.
I have nothing to add. Perfect.
So meanwhile, surprisingly, almost 1 hour has passed. So we still have a few questions. Bob, can you extend us a few more minutes?
Sure.
Great. So I see some questions here outside of, let's say, the development environment. And there is an interesting question from Sven. And he's asking if you are aware of a successful company that did a transformation or scaled successfully in the industry. Because we are I assume his question is that we hear a lot of successful companies who managed to scale properly, but sometimes we have, the counter information that, okay, don't take this company as an example because they don't do this model anymore. So I guess he's wondering what type of big companies did manage to scale properly.
Yeah, what attracted me here was that there's a no BS chat going on, right? So we don't hear the facade sort of, oh yeah, Agile really worked for us. And we agilified 5,000 people in half-year time, right? So that's why I'm asking, do you know any transformation or Agile transformation that is valuable in your eyes?
I don't know of any big companies. I know of big companies that have tried. I don't know of any big companies that have succeeded at it because the momentum is just so difficult to get through. Right. But there are a lot of small companies that have adopted Agile and extreme programming and craftsmanship kind of approaches and have been very successful and have grown. So there's a whole bunch of them out there. There's, ThoughtWorks was one of the first ones. Eighth Light. There's the DHH's company, Basecamp. What is it called? I can't remember anymore. But tons and tons of companies like that. And I expect that they will continue to grow. Maybe somebody else out there has a better idea of a big company that made a successful transformation. I don't.
Thank you. So I have my critics about scaling. So usually, what are the reasons for scaling? Is because you want to do more, you want to go faster, and usually you believe that developers are just a little piece on the huge machinery, and adding more of them, you're going to be able to do more and go faster. If you have a big product, learn how to do portfolio management, break it, make it simpler. you know. So we can split everything. So split your strategy, make that by little steps. So I really don't believe on scaling, and I believe scaling is the new cancer that we have in that industry. And yeah, it's growing so fast, and we have no cure, and that's one of the biggest issue that we have. And so the only scaling that I believe that is curable is less. That is, for me, is already bad, but it's curable. If you look at, I don't know, safe, forget it. Forget it. Forget it. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
So I actually agree with you. I think scaling is the cancer, but because we think that, or someone thinks that scaling has to somehow be agile. Agile was never meant to be a big project thing.
No,
it was always supposed to be a small project thing. And the fact that we're now trying to scale it is probably against the entire idea of agile.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we are there now, and I'm sad to say, is because the two people from Scrum, I respect one of them a lot, not the other one, but I will not give my opinion here. They created their own scaling process. I don't say method because, we need more to build a method. And the method, usually you study the impact of it and you know how to control it. They are just ideas and we don't have any proof of success on it. Okay. So when you look, when I look back, Rational Unified Process, they study it a lot before releasing Alder. Maybe you don't like it, but it was well structured by people who really try it. You may not like it, but when you see the scaling now, is like that they send you many drafts of many ideas, and every week they have a new version of it. So I'm fighting a lot against scaling, and for me that's really hard. I think I'm losing the fight anyway, but anyway, I'm still trying.
Scaling is a problem that human beings solved 5,000 years ago, and we built the pyramids. It's a big project. We've sent people to the moon, big project. Fought World War II, that was a pretty big project. We know how to do big projects. That's never been the problem for us. Human beings know how to do big projects. What we didn't know how to do was get a small team of software developers to do a software project well. Now, once we can do that, and you said this, Michael, once you can do that, all you have to do is break a big thing up into a bunch of little things and then manage all the little things according to the way we have always managed big projects. We know how to do that part of the problem. It's old operations research stuff. So I don't think Agile should be looked at as something that needs to grow. I think we already know how to do the big things.
Yeah, but all the big things that you mentioned killed a lot of people. So
what?
Yeah. All of them.
That's true.
Yeah. We killed people sending a rocket on the sky. So yeah. I all the time that I see the word scaling, I try to control myself to not give the word that I usually give. And we are being recording, so I'm gonna stay quiet.
I was about to remind you, careful, being recorded. Yeah.
I propose we move on to the next one. So and we are hitting to the end. So Lucas, you have a question also for Bob and the other panelists?
And nice to meet Bob. Bob, one of my big questions in Agile is how to lead with change over that follow-up plan. That means the backlog change, okay, but to mean that estimate can change. The same business goals and outcomes can have deadline changes. How explain deadline changes to levels that estimate can change and how estimate better?
Okay, so I don't think I heard that well. I think what you asked me is how you can explain how deadlines can change and how estimates can change.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So first of all, it is common for businesses to set a date. That's just the way businesses are. And there's actually nothing wrong with that because businesses are driven by dates. So when the business sets a date, okay, you have to believe the date. Maybe they run out of money at that date and they're just not going to be able to pay you anymore. So the date may actually be very real. The problem is that you're probably not going to get to that date with everything they expect. So you have to be constantly updating the business about how fast you're going, how much progress you're making, so that the business can look at that progress and look at the date and realize they're not going to make it. One of the great advantages to Agile is that it lets everybody know just how screwed they are really early on, right? Agile is this big bucket of cold water that gets poured over all the managers, and they all go, "Oh my God, we're not going to make this, are we? We're going to have to do something about it. We're going to have to manage it." And if the earlier you can tell people that, the better. People think they're doing Agile in order to go fast. Agile doesn't make you go fast. It just lets everybody know just how bad things are as early as possible. Agile is there to destroy hope.
Okay.
I love that. I'm gonna use that on my training. Thank you.
Thank God we are recording so people can, rewind and listen to this small bit. Thank you for that, Bob. Final question or remark. So Sandro, please.
I love is there to destroy hope. So is a remark, and I would like to know what Bob thinks about that as well. But from my understanding, is one of the mistakes that led to the state that we are in was the original idea was for us to iterate fast. And that iteration meant, as you said, like it exposes your current state. It exposes, so you learn with that, you get that feedback, and you act on it. And the acting on that is what made you agile, right? Is getting the feedback as fast as you can, repeatedly, and acting on it. But that meant also working on the most important problem, right? So you make an analysis according to that feedback. And this was, for me, one of the basics. That was the principle. That's what unified all those different methodologies. And that's why you came up with a single manifesto, because at the core of each one of them, you had that small and fast feedback loop, inspect and adapt. That was what was common across them all. From the technical in the TDD level to Scrum and the process and business, that was common. So, but for me, like going back to some of the conversations we just had, like about the scaling, or even the other conversation before, we went from learning and understanding what is important to fix to focus on the solutions themselves. For example, we start prescribing Scrum. So all of a sudden, the goal became adopting Scrum. The goal became adopting Safe. The goal became scaling Agile. But what the hell, which problem are you trying to solve here with that solution? So what is the problem that you are trying to solve with the solution that you are proposing, right? That is Scrum and Safe and so on. So even when we say we want to scale because of what? Because then we apply the Pareto's principle as well. So in all those years in doing this work, like in the Agile world, we know that we don't need to change on a whole organization. We can just focus in those bottlenecks, in those 20% that you can improve and create an 80% of improvement. And that's, for me, is far more important than say we need to scale. No, we just need to remove those bottlenecks one at a time. And do what Bob said, like breaking those problems. Yeah, we have a big problem. Great. Break them apart and then focus on the small priorities in each one of them. And I think this is where we went wrong. And by the way, this is not, in my view, now I'm going to also tackle the craftsmanship people. We went wrong in the craftsmanship world as well. Because like I cannot even count how many times people ask me, how do I convince my manager or my teammates to adopt TDD? How many times, Bob, you heard those questions? How do I convince?
Every single time.
Right. Because you are asking the wrong question. Because you are offering a solution to a problem that they don't see. TDD is not the goal. XP is not the goal. Scrum is not the goal. Safe is not the goal. And scaling is not the goal. So while we don't understand what problem we're trying to solve and have that kind of conversation, it doesn't matter which methodology or solution you put on the table. And it will be rejected. All right. So, and I just wanted to validate with Bob and say, like, are we trying to solve the wrong problem? Are we proposing the wrong solutions without understanding the problem? Is there where we went wrong?
I think that's a really interesting point of view. Did we get too techie with this? Did we put our engineer's hat on and try and solve the engineering problem without solving the real software problem, without addressing that issue? So I think that's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. I just because like every time I get it, I always say to our guys, like, look, if someone comes to me, I've been in the industry for a while. Someone comes to me and say, you know what, Sandro, everything that you've been doing for all this time, the way you code, the way you think, it's all shit. You know nothing. You should adopt. You should do this technique X, Y, Z. That is. I would tell them to fuck off. And so like see what I'm saying? So
British style. Don't worry, British style.
So yeah, I'm trying to. I cannot do British, so I flip to Brazilian very quickly. But but then, for example, if you try to say, you don't tell people to do CDD and say, you talk about what are problems are you having? Can you deliver? Can you release fast enough? Right? How much time does it take for you to be confident that code in a developer's machine go to production? How easy is to maintain that code? And that's the same for with Scrum and everything else. But I think we went wrong.
Yeah, I have a very strong opinion about that. The Y generation wasn't there long enough. So the people who ask why wasn't out there long enough. We was a very short generation. So from the 19th, people was asking, why are we doing those stupid ways? And they change it because they start doing it a different way, because they was trying to understand what are we trying to solve and why we do that way. And now we don't have the Y generation anymore. So people are doing that because, that's the way that we should be doing. Why people do that? Because it's different from the old people. So that's the reason. Why people do Agile? Because that's different from the old people. And they don't understand why we do it. So basically, the way that I read and talking with some of the people, what is magic on Agile is because of that very simple message. The only people who are able to see the problem and fix the problem are the workers. If you're not working, you don't see the problem. So anyone that is out of that cycle, of that circle of people, don't have any visibility of what is the problem. So any solution coming from people who are not putting their hands on it should be the wrong one. And sadly, what's happened is many people used to be good on doing those stuffs. And today they are telling people, I was good doing TDD, so you have to. I was doing refactoring, so we have to do refactoring. I was good doing code review, so we have to do code review. But people don't explain what kind of problem you solved when you was doing that. And that's the issue. And the new generation, I'm sorry, do the same wake up that you did a long time ago. Ask why. Don't believe on us. Don't trust us. I say that on my training. Don't trust me. I'm not doing the work anymore. So everything that I tell you may be right for me, but it's wrong for you. So stop trusting me. I'm just showing you the behavior that I had. And Sandro knows that I was fired many times because of my behavior. but I succeed. I succeed.
Yeah, but I think that this is the we see conflicts everywhere. And 20 years later, as Brianna was saying, other people were saying, we are still having conflicts between technology and business, or a manager doesn't want to adopt something, or a developer that doesn't want to adopt something and stuff. But I believe that we are all, well, some of us are guilty of that. And certainly I was for a very long time. And I felt that I had all the reasons, and I say, hey, everyone should work the way that I'm telling you, because, you know, I'm telling you that's the reason. And but like, while the problem is when you go like that, you create like your opinion against mine, and instead of us saying, hey, let's try to agree which problem you're trying to solve. Do we see the same problem here? Do we see the same issues? Because if we start there, all of a sudden we are on the same side now. Now we can work collaboratively to brainstorm ideas and methodologies and techniques to solve the same problem together, but not like I code this way, you code this way, so you are wrong, I'm right, or vice versa, or I want to use Scrum, or you want to use something else. And I think that this is where quite a few of us in quite a few different communities went wrong. We got too passionate about the tools or methodologies that we liked, and now we try to throw those methodologies down the throat of people, and we feel shocked that they don't listen to us.
Yeah. So that's why I became agnostic on any kind of solution. Ask the worker; they have the answer.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I have a question for you. So you see who we are, the way that we are, how creative we are, and I would love you to challenge someone from the 16, because Mike is not between us anymore, to come to talk to us. So if you have to challenge any of them, I'm gonna hunt them, I'm gonna find them, I'm gonna make them to come. From the people who was there on that room to sit here and talk to us, who do you challenge to talk to us?
Oh, what a good idea. There's a number of them that I think would be happy to talk to you. John Kern would probably love to do it. You might want to talk to James Grenning. He'd be a good guy to get in there if you want to talk about embedded real-time stuff. Have you spoken with Alistair? Alistair's great. I mean, he's a great guy to talk about all kinds of stuff like this. I bet you could get Kent. I bet Kent would come and talk to you guys.
On Scrum Alliance brand, not sure.
Oh, no.
No. Ken back.
No, I don't think he'd have a problem with that. He might yell at you. He might yell at you, but that's okay.
Okay,
Kent's a really interesting guy. He's not.
I used to talk a lot with him a long time ago.
Okay.
On the Montreal user group, so I can try to reconnect. I'm gonna try it. Nice. I'm gonna try Ken back. Ken Schrober, sorry. I'm gonna try it. So let's hunt him out. Good. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Sandro, for coming. I knew that you're going to be adding a lot too. And thank you, all of you.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Bob. I'm sure a lot of people will take some good insights of what they heard here. I had a few aha moments myself. So yeah, still, thank you. It's very good. So it means that 20 years later, there's a lot of deep thoughts and a lot of stuff that came out and still makes sense. I mean, I imagine software 20 years ago, and now it's even more spread. It's everywhere. It's on the stop signs. It's incredible. Software runs everything. So I'm sure.
It was speaking here.
And Michelle is showing us an old disk. But so thank you, Bob, and I'm sure this was very enlightening and very, very good. And thank you, Sandro, also to bring us your expertise. Very good. And everyone on the panel, Axel, Raquel, Carlos, very good. So Michelle will hunt the next guy, try to bring you on to the community. So we'll try to succeed on that. And yeah, so this is I think it was very good. So I wish you all a very nice evening.
Yeah,
and afternoon for you, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Have a good day.
so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was
Thank
great.
you. Bye bye.
Thanks.